Hello everyone, we're back at it again, trying to see if we can beat Hitman 2 by just dumping people off of ledges. If you haven't watched the video where I do this in the first game, go watch it now. If you have already, the rules are pretty much the same. The only way that we can eliminate enemies is by using contextual dump prompt, and all other methods of killing are banned. We can incapacitate enemies in any way we choose, but in order to avoid the loophole of just making a big pile of unconscious bodies and then dumping them all down a hole later on, each enemy that has been knocked unconscious must be dumped and killed before we can knock anyone else out. I also failed to mention one final rule in my first video, and it's that we won't be following any mission stories. These can sometimes be useful in leading targets toward places they can be made to fall off of, but I like the improvisational and chaotic energy of playing this challenge without them, so they'll be off limits as well. I'm curious what you guys think will be the toughest level of this game, so leave a comment on which one you expect to give me the most trouble. With all that admin out of the way, let's get into it. First up, and least noteworthy of all, is Night Call. This level essentially serves as half tutorial, half plot introduction, and considering the nature of the run, we're not particularly interested in either. What we're solely interested in is murdering Alma Reynard, and that happens pretty easily. For the record, since I won't be discussing it at length in any other level, our preferred loadout hasn't changed at all since the first game, and we're still bringing coins and a lockpick into every level. Coins are invaluable for distracting and isolating enemies, and the lockpick just helps us get into more areas more easily, since weapons aren't particularly useful for our purposes here. Back to the level though, and all we have to do is hide in a closet for a couple minutes, then knock Reynard out while her boyfriend is showering a couple feet away, drag her body over to the nearest balcony, and leg it back to our boat on the beach. It's not entirely that simple of course, since the enemy has found our boat and we have to light up a little distraction on the way back, but we pull this off with no problems and have completed the first level of the game with no issues. Sure hope we can keep this up. Our next level is the finish line, which will quickly prove that we cannot, in fact, keep up our pace from the previous level. We head straight in and knock out a press guy in the bleachers, before deciding we'd rather be security instead, so we make our own little miniature pile of bodies and move on to the Kronstadt building to look for Robert Knox. There are a couple ways to get Sierra killed out on the track, but as far as I know, none of those involve her falling off a ledge, so we have to leave her alone for now and go after Dad. After sneaking around some guards to get ourselves onto the second floor, we lure a higher security guard than the one we were previously dressed as into a bathroom and steal his clothes, giving us pretty much free reign over the place. We determine we don't have the skills to kill him on the floor we're currently occupying, so we decide to follow him up to his room where we learn that messing with his air conditioning aggravates his dry eyes and make him head to the bathroom for eye drops, leaving him alone and vulnerable. This being brand new information to me, since I don't think I've ever actually been on this floor of the building before now, we don't have a clear path yet, so we head out to go give flying lessons to some of his guards and clear a path that we can drag him through. With this accomplished, we can go back to his room, monkey with the AC again, wait very inconspicuously outside the bathroom window for him to come in, and throw him down onto the racetrack. Up next is Sierra, who has recently finished the race and is now much more amenable to being tossed off of something tall. It's pretty hard to find an opening in her schedule, since she tends to occupy crowded areas and has an enforcer following her at all times. There's a lot of uninteresting loitering around that happens here, which I won't show you, but I wanted to mention because this level was a lot harder than it looks. Now here's the part where people who think Hitman Run isn't legit unless it's done full Silent Assassin will get very mad, because I eventually just decided to take out the mascot since he has a pretty solid run of the place and nobody's able to pick us out as a fake. And unfortunately, the only way to dump his body is to walk right past some civilians who, to be honest, I just couldn't be bothered to murder since this level was beginning to drag on. I discovered, though, that if you just waltz past them to the nearest point where the waterfront is accessible, which is conveniently around a corner, then you have time to dump the guy in the costume and put it on before the help they called has time to arrive and get us in trouble. With our slick new duds obtained, we can move on to shadowing Sierra. After much trial and error, we land on this staircase as a location to take her out in, using the following sequence of moves. Right after the guy walks out of the bathroom past us as Sierra's climbing the stairs, we throw the reporter over the ledge to his death and immediately throw a coin to distract the guard to our right, since he hears any non-silent attacks. Then we nail Sierra in the face with a soda can and wait for her follower to turn around and talk to the guard about what she just saw. Then we can snag Sierra, drag her up to the railing, and throw her down to her death undetected, allowing us to simply stroll past everyone and back out the front gate, completing the level. I'd say that's the game making up for the ease of the first level, but I really think this run wasn't on anyone's mind when they balanced this game. Moving on. Third is, fittingly enough, Three-Headed Serpent, which, as you might guess, has 3 targets to take out. No points for creative naming there. Anyway, we decide to head for Martinez first and run into our first obstacle when we can't get through a locked gate. Turns out we had the wrong loadout, so one restart and about a minute later, we're in her yard stealing this poor guy's uniform. With this on, we can enter relatively easily and start eliminating all the guards on the top floor. With this accomplished, it's just a matter of waiting until she returns to the house, allowing us to knock her out and throw her off the balcony, letting us move on to Delgado. We make our way into the mansion grounds by climbing up the exterior wall, and with a well-placed coin sneak past the only guard who's facing the right direction, and climb up the drain pipe into Delgado's bathroom. Using the awesome power of an overflowing sink, we manage to lure both of the guards in the room where Delgado sits into the bathroom, throw them out the window, and then take out Delgado himself with ease. Wow, that's 2 down and no major issues so far. I hate to tempt fate by acknowledging the smooth ride we're on. After escaping the mansion while everyone is distracted by these corpses, we're off to the plantation to kill Franco, who is both more mobile than the other two and has 2 bodyguards following him around everywhere. The most isolated place we can seem to get at him easily is the area around his shack, so we start covertly dumping everyone we can find into the water one by one, feeding some very hungry piranhas in the process. After a few minutes of this, we've completely emptied the area and also taken out one of his bodyguards, leaving just him and his second bodyguard standing between us and mission completion. The second bodyguard must have some horseshoes up his ass though, since when we tried to distract him and pull him away from his boss, Franco decides to go investigate the coin himself instead of sending a lackey like targets typically do. Not wanting to pass up on the easy kill, we knock Franco out and send him down to Davy Jones's locker, before hopping in the conveniently placed helicopter and flying off with a surprisingly easy victory. I knew we'd be fine tempting fate, there's nothing that can stop us now. Nothing, that is, except our next mission, chasing a ghost. This one, folks, is what we in the business call a doozy. Our first target is Vanya Shaw, who is dug into an enclosed train yard and likes to hang out on ground level. See the problem there? After infiltrating her stronghold, we clear out the upper catwalks to give us a safe place from which to survey the area, and also a clear path to dumping her body once we finally manage to knock her out. What follows is an absolute shit ton of messing around and just killing whoever we can when we get the opportunity, because everyone seems to like standing stationary and staring at each other, leaving us with a lack of opportunities to isolate individuals. On top of that, the stairs offer no cover and face inward to the main area, so if someone happens to so much as glance in our direction as we're dragging a body up top, we're detected immediately and under attack. Eventually, we managed to lure a particularly pesky servant up to the top level by throwing a hammer down onto the right spot on the walkway. We also lost our coins infiltrating this place, so we can't chain throwing these like we normally would. And this lets us take him out, which turns out to be the thread that will unravel this whole sweater. For some reason, Shaw's enforcer decides to follow a guard who's dragging a body upstairs, again for unknown reasons since other bodies had been collected in a different spot, and she is distracted by some other dead bodies that we had tossed off the 3rd level walkway. This gives us the perfect opportunity to kill her, which I'm absolutely elated about since this finally gives us our first real chance at taking out Shaw herself. We head back to find her when she wanders directly into our path while apparently looking for her right-hand woman, leading to an easy but no less satisfying finish to this first part of the level. I've noticed a couple times that we can trigger some weird AI behavior when we remove enough other NPCs from an area, and it's always interesting to see what happens when we do this kind of thing. Also of note in this area is that we find some information that will allow us to identify the Melstrom, which is as good of a segue into the next target as I think we're going to get. Off to find the Melstrom, which I was expecting to take ages like it typically does, but somehow we managed to find him on like the 3rd guy we look at, which is awesome and somewhat makes up for the pain that we're about to experience. Unfortunately, what with this level being set in Mumbai and all, it's super crowded where he is, and the slum rooftops are also quite finicky about what constitutes a ledge that I'm allowed to dump someone off of, severely limiting our options. After following him around for a full circuit of his routine, we decide that this area around the docks is the best place for us to ambush him, and we get to work clearing it out. This takes a lot of patience, but if I proved anything during Showstopper in the first game, it's that I'm up for this sort of thing. Between a ledge of questionable height that somehow counts for eliminations and this dock, we whittle down everyone in the area until there's a clear path between where the Melstrom stops and where we need his body to go. Unfortunately, however, we hit one final snag, and it's that he's a total wiener and refuses to come around the corner with us, either sending other people to look at distractions for him or simply walking away once we've killed all the people that are willing to look for him. Being unable to isolate him, we eventually decide to just chuck a fish at his dumb face and drag him over to the dock before any help can arrive. Weep, all you silent assassin purists out there. I'm honestly not super proud of this one, but the only other way I could think of to get him relatively undetected was to slowly take out dozens of extra civilians to clear the path, and that really wasn't going to make this video any more interesting, so there you go. If you know of a better spot where I could isolate him, let me know in the comments. We circle back to our body pile for a fresh fit and head on over to the unfinished tower to take out Delwood. Dawood? Honestly can't remember and can't be bothered to look it up. We've definitely saved the best for last, and it's extra satisfying to take this guy out after what we've just been through, since there are open windows and elevator shafts aplenty in his area, which is just how we like it. It's not difficult to scale the outside of the building and get ourselves onto the top floor, where he likes to use the seclusion to discuss his shadier dealings. We clear out some guards and wait until we have our chance to get him alone, at which point we dump him down an elevator shaft and stroll out the back to the level exit. After the sheer brutality that was chasing a ghost, we're served up a bit of a softball with this next one, Another Life. There are 2 targets to take out, plus a few clues to find, and both of our targets hang out in nice little suburban 2-story homes. I'm sure you can see where we're going with this. Our first target is Janus, and as we have so many times before, we enter his bathroom via the drain pipe and systematically eliminate all of his guards and associates before defenestrating him once there's nobody left to catch us. So far, so easy. Next up is Nolan Cassidy, and we do go out of our way to find all the necessary clues on the way, but these don't pose any particular challenge and are only worth mentioning to explain why we've put on these sweet robes. Cassidy's house goes much the same as Janus's, but with one very irritating difference. The only fatal window is watched by this absolute asshat of a gardener next door, who pretty much just walks in circles and is kinda hard to spot if you don't know he's already there. The first couple times he saw me, I genuinely couldn't figure out how I'd been spotted dumping bodies out of the window, and he forces us to wait a few seconds extra every time for the appropriate timing whenever we want to dump a body. This doesn't add much challenge per se, only tedium, but he caused me more than a few restarts before I had his timing figured out. Anyway, after all that is dealt with, we ambush Cassidy in the kitchen and send him to join all his friends on ground level. Not much to say about this one, it's one of the easiest and least interesting levels in the game. Important plot-wise, sure, but it really doesn't offer too much in the way of challenge. Last, and certainly not least, is the Ark Society. Our first move, as it often is to climb up the outside of the central building and get some height. We start chucking everyone we can out of windows, gaining a higher security costume in the process, in the hopes that the Washingtons will come upstairs to this lovely empty space where we can murder them with ease. Unfortunately, however, I'm now pretty sure they only make their way upstairs when certain mission stories or other triggers are hit, so we've just cleared out all the space for nothing. I guess not completely nothing, because that body dumping animation genuinely never gets old, but the amount of time I spent here is not proportionate to the amount of usable footage I obtained for this video, so I can't really say I'm completely happy. Anyway, with our hopes and dreams of an easy final level dashed, we move down to a floor where we do manage to sneak into a secure room that Sophia tends to visit and manage to take her out in here. After this, I decided to be prudent to clear the rest of the floor since the Constant spends some time here, and I want ambushing him to be easy, which I'm sure some of you can see the flaw in already, and those who can't will learn why this is stupid in just a moment. Zoe, unlike Sophia, doesn't hang out in any isolated rooms occupied only by 2 guards that also happen to have windows, so she's definitely the tougher of the 2 sisters to take down. After following her around for a while, we determined that the best place to take her out is by Janus's coffin, so we set to work feeding everyone in the area to the abyss so we can take her out undetected. Except for the blindfolded harpist, I suppose, because she's not really at risk of spotting us. After a lot of time spent doing this, there being a lot of stationary groups of people talking to each other that are annoying to separate, we finally have Zoe alone, so we take our frustrations out on her face and drag our final victim over to the ledge. While we're in the process of doing this, we notice that she drops the kill switch for the Constant, which allows us to coerce him into walking out with us, which is why my misguided attempts from earlier to make his capture easier were so pointless. We walk him down to our boat and drive off, finishing the run and proving that yes, if you are so inclined, it is possible to beat Hitman 2 by only tossing people off of ledges. This game felt a lot more up and down than the previous one, with a couple ridiculously hard targets mixed in with what are probably the 2 easiest levels so far for this challenge. That being said, it was still really cool to see different sides of some of these levels, and it feels awfully nice to be successful in one of these challenges after losing out on the last couple in the last minute. If you want to see this challenge attempted in the 3rd game, or just any other sorts of challenges that I'll be putting out, make sure you're subscribed and maybe throw me a like to validate my suffering a little bit. I also have channel memberships turned on, as well as a Patreon that's linked in the description if you feel like matching the positive energy of the one person whose name you see on screen right now, and also contributing to my new microphone fund. But if you've made it this far, you should know I just appreciate you sticking around to the end, and ultimately, that's all I really need. See you next time.